Here for Twitter, you got it out. I put it on mine here. Sorry. And you are on camera, by the way, Chief. So you don't want to. No, I'm just saying. I know media training comes with the job. We're just sending a tweet out right now because we want as many people as possible to see you live, but we can only do that once the camera is live, and so, here we are. So, Chief, good morning, Chief.
Good morning, Omari. How are you?
I'm good. I'll put it out there that right now we're in at least the protesters and the people of Capitol Hill, they call it the Chaz. You know what I'm saying? But of course, you call it Capitol Hill and part of the city of Seattle.
That's right. And that is what it is, right? A long-standing part of the city. So.
Right. Now, Chief, you guys were just over at the East Precinct. Oddly enough, just a few feet away. Sometimes people keep wondering. I've been doing this our streaming here for a while, and somehow I'm just always in the right place at the right time. I wish I could say that I'm just some great, reporter or whatever, but happen to see you here just a few feet away. All right. Well, thank you, Chief. I appreciate it. Can you please tell everybody what brought you to the East Precinct this morning?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what started, Omari, was that we were looking at our calls for service and our complaints about the lack of police response. When I actually looked at the data, it showed that it's taking us a long time to respond to the calls for service, our priority calls for service up in the Capitol Hill area. Where it used to be about just over 5 minutes, it was taking around 18 minutes for us to get up here and respond. And these are the important calls, not that every call isn't important, but the priority one would be anything that's in progress, rape, robbery, assaults, those sorts of things. We weren't able to get here, and not within a timely fashion. Additionally, even our lower priority calls, it was taking about an hour for us to come and serve the public. So ultimately, we need to have a building and facility where we could, come in, serve the public, answer calls for service, take care of some of the issues and problems, recognizing full bore that there are a lot of folks who have a lot of concerns about accountability and police responses, and those conversations should be going on and should continue going on. But at the end of the day, we do need to provide service to everybody. We opened up the streets. We opened up everything so that people could be available to come in, cleared up all of the, all of the barricades. And now, here we are, the streets are all barricaded. People don't feel free to come in and walk around their streets. So we haven't really made much progress. And the police station looks like a bunker. So we want to get rid of all that. We want to open things up. We want to make sure that we're able to do the work that we're supposed to be doing and I can lead that work without a problem. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine. And people are saying that you're a bit hard to hear. We're using the iPhone.
Okay, I'll try to speak up.
Yeah, so we'll just speak up a little bit here so everybody can hear you well, Chief. They can hear your message, and we'll bring this a bit closer to you.
Close to my face.
Yeah, but you're made up though, so you're ready for it. So we can hear the Chief now.
Okay.
All right. And so immediately when you guys went inside of the East Precinct, we saw a crowd of community members, protesters, Chaz residents, whatever you want to call them, come over there with a sense of concern, as a lot of people up here in this neighborhood, they've already seen beyond the East Precinct, and they've seen beyond. They're seeing it maybe being repurposed into a community center or some other structure that's actually going to benefit the community. And what are your thoughts about that?
I love the idea of having some sort of facility where people can gather and call it their own, but it shouldn't be in my view, the police precinct. We're not in a situation now where we have other facilities where we can respond and answer calls for service. I signed up to help people, and I know that people have concerns about a lot of the things that we're doing, so we're willing to talk about it, have a dialogue, change tactics, evolve and reform, and that is important. But we do need to have the ability to answer those calls and respond to people. If it was your brother, your sister, your mom, my brother, and they needed a police response for safety, you don't want that to be delayed where they can't get the support that they need for whatever situation that they're in. So that's why I'm here, and then all the other issues, the politicians, the activists, everybody, they can come together and figure out how they want to move forward. But for right now where we are, we need a place where we can be able to start looking at how we can respond to calls for service. I feel like very important. I just feel like I have a full responsibility to do that.
Right. And just for people who might not have heard the first answer here, when we asked why you're coming in today, you said that you were inspecting the precinct, and one of the big drivers of that was the fact that your response time, your 911 response time is down. And
well, it's up.
Well, yeah, it's up. Yeah,
yeah.
That's the new math.
Yeah, so it's up, and we know some folks went into the precinct last night. We saw that, so we need to take assessment of the facilities. The taxpayers are still paying for that facility. It's still costing money, and it's empty right now, and it's disheveled, and it's a mess, and it's going to be a lot of work to make it even functional for anybody. But I think it's really important that we're able to respond to those calls for service. And I think there's nothing more paramount if we can't take a role in public safety. And all those other issues, they'll be worked out. We're constantly changing and evolving, trying to make things better. I think it's very interesting that some of those folks, by their very genetics, they have privilege. I don't have that privilege, right? I'm a black woman chief coming in here trying to take care of public safety, and it's my ancestors and yours that helped build community enslaved. And now here we are, and I'm trying to defend what's right and good. And I think I'm going to quote Dr. Martin Luther King because I love this quote: "The time is always right to do what is right." And I will stand for what I believe is right. And people can agree or not agree. Because when I leave here, I'm still going to be the black woman walking down the street dealing with the issues that every other black person is dealing with. So I am not coming to this from any other perspective, but as a chief, trying to make sure that people are safe.
Right. No. So, I mean, the thing is, Chief, what I've noticed here, and not everything falls on your shoulders, but what I've noticed here is that, and really with the protests is unveiled in a lot of communities, as well as what COVID has unveiled, is it's shown what's really not been working, but communities have found a way to patch it together. And what we see up here on Capitol Hill is that, I think that, me personally speaking, that there was a gap in leadership in between the people on the Hill and maybe people who represent, because I've been out here for 2 weeks and there's been a lot of different changes in leadership and who's leading things and everything else. But that being said, whose responsibility is it to be talking to the leadership when it emerges over here, or whoever's in charge?
You point out something really critical. Who's in charge? I came down the other day by myself and was chatting with some folks, and I think you know about that. And hard to figure out who's in charge. I heard somebody say that there is no leader, so that makes it difficult. So I'm not sure if that situation is going to change or not. But I guess at this point, we're willing to talk to anybody who wants to talk. I don't feel like it's my responsibility to lead city policy. I'm not an elected official. There are elected officials who have to deal with all of those issues. Your city council, your mayor, others. So talk to them. But, I'm just here to make sure that we're able to answer calls for service and take care of public safety. That is the important thing to do. And all the other things will be vetted out later.
Right. Now, Chief, are you able to talk about, because when we talk about especially defunding the police,
sure.
that hits you directly.
Yeah.
Well, 2 questions. One is, what percentage of calls, 911 calls, do you guys get, if you know right now, or of calls that could probably be handled in a different way? Like if there was, I don't know, an office of social workers or an office of whatever, because this is one of the things that people talk about in defunding the police, is that routing other solutions away from the police into more of a social services aspect.
Well, I don't have an exact number for that, but here's what I do know is that, people, when it just comes to calls for service, people can come in, and we often have people call in and log in online, and they can report things online, so there's not a heavy police response in that regard. But one of the areas that we know we have a lot of calls for service is dealing with the mentally ill and people who are in crisis in the city. In about 18 months, we had 16,000 bona fide, not people guessing, but bona fide calls where people were in crisis. And I've seen it myself just driving down the street. I saw a man standing in front of a plate glass window, and just swinging his arms as hard as he could at his own reflection. He's looking at himself and he's swinging at his own reflection. I don't know what he was seeing, but there was something else going on there. I stood by another corner, down on Occidental, another guy, again, standing on the corner, swinging and yelling. So we have a lot of folks who really need help, who really need that intervention. And I would love to have more people to respond for that. Officers responding, we train them, we've done crisis intervention training and all of that. But wouldn't it be great if people who are trained in mental health came out and when those calls came in, and they were the ones responding, and they were the ones helping these people, and there was a system in place to get these people who are in many ways vulnerable, better assistance and help. So I would love to see that.
Right, and now I try to give as many different perspectives as possible to our viewers, and we've given a lot of airtime to defund the police because, of course, I spend a lot of time with the people and not with the police. Right. So we've been able to give a lot of spotlight on the idea of defund the police. I think the idea being floated is to cut the budget by 50%, or about $183 million, and they would reallocate those funds into community programs. Now, for you, what does defund the police mean? What would a 50% budget in your resources in your agency look like?
I haven't explored down to the line item. I think I hear different definitions depending on who you're talking to about what that means. Some say 50%, some could say X amount of millions of dollars. I can tell you this. While I agree with the fact that there needs to be assistance and help for people who need it in social services, I don't believe that those two issues are mutually exclusive. So there needs to be a way that people can get the services they need, but we still have to have police departments to respond to other calls for service. Rapes, robberies, crisis with young children, internet crimes against children. Those things still need a police response. People are still calling in on those things. So I think that there needs to be some rational dialogue about what that means, how there can be other funding services everywhere else, how they're, but I can't, without a clear definition for one, but obviously 50% would be detrimental, so there has to be some middle ground there somewhere. Again, I don't set my own budget, so that's for others to decide.
Right, and so the way, do you make budget recommendations?
When asked, I do.
Okay, but then the budget is what's proposed by the mayor and then voted by the city council?
That's exactly right. There's a whole process for that, but there has no involvement, specific and direct, other than I might get questions about different things that we required or asked for, and for the police department. Right,
and so this is a little off subject, but on subject right here. We get a lot of response because now we've got the chief of the building. Quite a few people chiming in from the Central District and the South End, and they just wanted your feedback on the protest that occurred there. There was the protest on 23rd and Jackson, and then the We Just Want to Live that was on the South End. I mean, well, we're getting right here. I'm reading the comments. It was like, man, we had a peaceful protest. Nothing happened.
It was wonderful. My daughter, my son-in-law, and my nephew and my cousins were at that very protest. And I just call them demonstrations because they're not really protesting. They're demonstrating and they're expressing what they want to see happen, the changes that they want to see. So my own family's down there. My good friends are there. And they went smoothly. But what we were dealing with here in the early days wasn't that. And you know it because you were out there. And so there were elements who really weren't, engaged in what the issue at hand was. And there was people who were throwing rocks and bottles. So now we're trying to figure out better ways to respond to that don't involve, chemical munitions or anything like that. Because people have spoken, so we're trying to figure out the right balance there.
Right, and when you talk about the thing up here on Capitol Hill, I think that, in my own personal opinion, and like you said, you're not the elected official or the leader here. You're the leader of the police force. But in my own personal opinion, I think that early on, people were out of touch in what the guys at Capitol Hill were really upset about. Like, everybody was upset. Just as a journalist who's covered this, I'm just giving you my insight. People were very upset about this crime against humanity that we all saw with George Floyd and ongoing issues, even here issues with Seattle Police Department, because it brought up an opportunity to kind of pull off a scab of people who have grievances. But how it went down on Monday night, you know what I'm saying? I think it's so catalyzed the residents, because like the same people who were protesting are the same people who live right across the street from your precinct.
Right.
These are the same people who have the businesses here. So it isn't even like it was downtown and people are going to a destination.
Right.
You're getting protested at the barricade here. The police were getting protested at the barricade here against the actual residents who didn't take kindly to the barricades and to the tear gas and everything else. And I don't think that, I mean, I kept saying it, but I don't think that people really understood, because I think a lot of the original conversation was Capitol Hill, we hear you, we feel that, we stand with you, what happened to George Floyd was wrong and everything else. And yeah, that was what was going on here, but I don't think that people really addressed the fact that it was like the community that lives here, they're just mad how it went down, and you got the pictures here with all the gas and everything, and you see what I'm saying?
I get it 100%. So, you and I talked about that. They didn't feel like the response was proportional, and we'll be looking at all that. Reasonable, necessary, and proportionate. That's our policy, and so if people think it's not proportional, we need to revisit maybe what that looks like and how we respond. But we, and every single time we got complaints and concerns, we tried to make sure that we were listening to people and doing what they asked. We ultimately, it took a few days of ongoing discussion and dialogue, but ultimately the barricades were lifted. We opened up the street at their request because they were mad about, many of them, about the pepper spray and whatnot. And so we knew that we had to make some changes and adjustments, and we did it. We're evolving and growing and making sure that we're listening to people's concerns, but also protecting public safety and protecting the officers too. So I think we made a lot of concessions to make sure that we had a safe environment. We listened to people. And now here we are today. If you go out there, there's barricades on every corner. Is it time for me to go? Is that what you're here for?
No,
okay.
So Chief Diaz.
I saw him come closer, so I thought you were trying to get. I'm not looking at my watch.
Right. No, and I appreciate, and I think that of course the people watching appreciate. Yeah. So I mean, another thing that's come into play here as well, and it kind of got accelerated due to COVID, and it comes back to a police thing when you talk about streets and barricades, is that the city of Seattle already blocked off a lot of streets to make them safe and healthy streets. I know that it's Seattle, I think Greenway or Safe Spaces, one of these organizations, they actually wanted to block 130 miles worth of streets within the municipality. Mm-hmm. One of the things this community here is saying is like, man, they don't want the streets back open, but they're not setting a precedence for that, because like in the Central District, there's streets that are closed off. You know what I'm saying? I mean, not totally closed off, but you know what I'm saying? It's limited access and everything else. And so I know that this is one of the things that people in this community were talking about.
That may be in the future. I mean, I'm not the decision maker on that, but certainly I think everybody's going to be open to that. But that's not my call to make, but that may happen here.
Chief, in your best case scenario, if it was up to you and you could just have it your way, how would the Seattle Police Department regain control of this precinct?
What we really need to start with is regaining community trust. That's where the issue is. Words like control, those words are, we got to get rid of words like control. We need to have community trust and building trust. What I'd love to see right now is, because I think it's really important that we're able to respond to those calls for service, especially those emergency calls where people need us and they need us to be there, and that we are able to do that, but also open it up. Drop the bunker look that was created. Open up the doors, take things down. We have a community room right in the front. People can come there. They can go elsewhere if they want to, and that would be great. And then we can start building the trust that we need to build. And they can get the information directly from us about what they're concerned about, not through a third-party filter. So that's what I'd love to see. Initially, it was all about acknowledging, the history of policing, without going into great detail. But we know that police have been used when people have asked for freedom and justice and fairness. Policing was used to maintain the status quo. We're all aware about it. I can acknowledge that just like everyone else can. But we got to find a path forward. I don't want to be out here every night. I don't want officers hit with rocks and bottles. I don't want pepper spray in the community. I don't want those things to happen. So we're trying to find ways to modulate and minimize and not have those issues. But we can't do it if people aren't willing to come to us and we're willing to go to them too, and have the discussion. What do we want to see and how are we going to move forward? How are we going to evolve and make sure that community policing is real and that it's valid and that people feel like they're getting the same level of services and they're not being targeted because of, the color of their skin or their gender or any other demographic out there. And that is where, and we have a problem here, not just in the police department, but in so many other areas. I found it interesting that, they don't want our equipment at the school district, and yet if you're African American in the Seattle Public Schools, you have a 50% chance of graduating. So I think people need to focus on some of those issues as well that are affecting all of us. That's what I think it needs to be. So I stand before people, I stand on honor and in truth. I'm never going to tell people things that I don't believe, and I'm going to be honest about it. And I do honestly believe we need to be able to respond. Officers need to be back in the building. Folks that want to have other facilities, they should have that. We need some community gathering spots where people can have peace and reconciliation and move things forward, not backward.
Right. And now, how much, one thing I will say.
I got one more, Omari, that we have to go.
Yes, ma'am. One thing I will say is that you're always calm. And so it's hard to tell when you're under pressure, at least when I've seen you. But how much pressure, how much of you showing up today and engaging with the community and starting this dialogue that you talk about, does that have to do with anything coming down from the White House and from, other elements, different police unions and things like that, as far as, of course we saw what the president said, but we won't spend too much time going down that road. But I'm just saying that there's clearly he's also put a spotlight, a national, international spotlight. I talked to the BBC this morning. They called me just about this. How much pressure are you feeling to get this precinct reopened, if any pressure at all? And is that pressure impacting your decision making?
Yeah, I'm not feeling, obviously I'd rather not be in this position, but I don't feel excessive pressure. I'm just trying to do, whenever things get difficult or you're trying to figure it out, I always say this to myself: do the right thing. What's the right thing to do here? Well, how are you really going to help, and what difference are you going to make? And I don't want my legacy here to be that, we hunker down. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be that we fought with people. I don't want to be that we were closed-minded and weren't listening, because we are. It's important to me, because I will one day not be here, but I'll be a citizen just, and when I am, I want to make sure that the decisions that I could impact were ones that made things safer for everybody. That's all. Nothing more.
Well, cool. So we'll let you go, Chief Bass. I just want to make a promise here real quick. There's a lot of people who on the stream like, man, ask her about this shooting, ask her about this and that. And, our agreement here today was our discussion was about the actual logistics of what's going on with this protest. But I think that we have a good dialogue, and I think it would be good if we could sit down again, what I'm saying, and address questions that the community has about police and policing. I know today was about logistics and what's going on with this particular precinct.
Yeah, I would love to do that, because often I get questions like, you should fire that person, you should do this, you should do that. And it's like, they don't understand due process, protocols, the rules that are in place, all the accountability partners. A lot of that stuff is there. It's supposed to be independent, objective review before it even comes to me, so that people can't say that, the police are just thin blue line, hiding behind whatever. Nope, independent bodies, Office of Inspector General, Office of Police Accountability, Andrew Meyerberg, Lisa Judge, the Community Police Commission. Everybody gets to, work on those accountability issues before they come to me. So, that's supposed to give people a relative sense of, comfort, I guess, that it's not just the police policing the police, right? Because nobody's comfortable with that. So, but when people ask questions, I think that there's an expectation that I'm, omnipotent in this whole thing and can make all these overarching decisions about every little aspect. But there are processes in place. So I think it's a great opportunity to educate people on how this works. So yeah, I'd love to do that. That's my answer.
All right, Chief Best. We'll be talking to you soon. Appreciate you taking the time, ma'am.
All right, you take care.
Yeah, have a wonderful day. Thank you, Chief Diaz, officers. Wow. So, how do I turn this thing here? So, I know you guys don't want to see me, but that was Seattle Police Department Chief Best came in and kind of filled us in here on a few things as far as the police position. I think it's important, I'm telling you guys from day one, that we're able to get different viewpoints from wherever people are at in this situation. What the chief is saying is they want to start a dialogue with the community. Well, what she said is ultimately she wants the precinct back, but she said that they want to start a dialogue here with the community. She said that she thinks a community center is a great idea, but not necessarily made out of her precinct. She's also said that, as the police chief, she's appointed and she's not elected, and that, a lot of these discussions and things forward is going to lie in the hands of elected officials that are out here. She said that the response time of SPD is down or it takes longer. I keep getting those confused. I guess it's up because they're not positioned in their precinct, so they can't respond in enough time. She also said that in defunding the police, she said she doesn't make her budget. She said that the city council and the mayor are the ones who make the budget, and she has to work with the budget. But she said that being defunded would definitely impact her force. She said that she wants to, be able to basically, I guess you'd say, work with the community, and we'll see what happens with that and follow up. And the last thing is because we want to have a discussion about police and policing issues. This isn't necessarily the forum. And so a lot of people on the stream, like, man, you got to ask the chief about this or ask her about this murder or that murder. I think that when we talk about the seriousness of those issues as well, when we talk about people, who might have been killed or brutalized, we want to be able to set the real scene for you guys and use our full resources. But we'll look to set that up here in the next little bit because I think, as you heard the chief say, she said it's important for her as well to be able to address these concerns that the community has. And so it's our job here as media to kind of set the table for you, for the community, to be able to, get answers from people, whether it's the protesters, whether it's the police, whether it's city officials or whatever. We're going to keep striving. And the other thing that she said is that she would really like to see more mental health resources out there. She said that it's a lot of times 911 calls come in and, the police are handling the calls, but there needs to be more mental health and things that are out there. So, like I said, again, we wanted to be able to give you guys, both sides of kind of things that are going on out here. Of course, we talk to the protesters a lot more because we're out here with the protesters. We don't, we're not embedded with the police. We're embedded with the protesters. And so that's where that occurs. But this has been an interesting morning. Didn't expect all this morning, but I guess, we stay ready for it. We're going to end this stream right here, and we're probably going to start the morning show here in a little bit, in like the next 15 minutes or so, coming across on the Converge page. Want to thank everybody for checking us out. Peace.